We're just a few minutes into the hour, so I think we should get started. I am very happy to present Melissa Dolan, who is the director of Emil Capital Partners and a community partner of Naturally New York. Very much thank you for your support and contributions to our organization. And we also have Philip Freeman, who's the founder and CEO of Murphy's Naturals. They're here to talk to you about creating a mission-minded supply chain. So without further ado, Melissa, please take it away.
Great. Thanks, Adrian. And good morning, everyone. Hopefully this is an easy start to your day and you're enjoying a cup of coffee while Philip and I have a chat about supply chain. And I'm sure many people on here have had or could tell a lot of stories about supply chain over the past few years. So I think we'll hit on some of those both pain points and opportunities in our discussion. So like Adrian said, I'm a director at Emil Capital, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know Philip over the past few years since we invested in Murphy's Naturals. Philip is the founder and CEO of Murphy's. Prior to Murphy's, he spent a number of years serving our country in the U.S. Navy as a deep sea diving officer. And following that time, and first of all, Philip, let me say, I think I speak on behalf of a number of people. Thank you for your service.
Thanks, Melissa. It was an honor to serve.
Following his time in the Navy, Philip spent 23 years at International Paper. And following that time, he founded Murphy's in 2013. Murphy's is named for Philip's beloved pet and friend, his dog, Murphy. In 2017, Murphy's became a certified B Corp. And I think we'll hear a lot about that journey and how that certification and just Murphy's mission of doing others good is infused in everything that they do. Philip lives in Raleigh, North Carolina, with his wife, Pam, who happens to be the inspiration for Murphy's. And so hopefully Philip will tell us that story as well. So let's jump into it, Philip. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm glad we're in September in many regards. It was a terrible mosquito season.
It was, and it still is here, quite frankly, in Raleigh. But the temperatures are so nice outside right now. You want to be outdoors more and more. So we have to cohabitate.
That's right. It's that nice crisp weather now. So for those who haven't become intimately familiar with Murphy's during this mosquito season, maybe you can tell everyone just a little bit about what you do at Murphy's, how you got started, and Murphy's mission of doing others good.
Sure. Thanks, Melissa. I love telling our story. It solved a problem at home. But to give people a little bit of background before I go into that, just about Murphy's itself. We're a natural products company, and we develop and manufacture natural products for outdoor living. That's our focus, is the outdoors. And specifically, our first products and our primary products were developed for mosquito repellency. And one of the inspirations for Murphy's really came from a problem at home. My wife, Pam, is a mosquito magnet, and so many of us know a mosquito magnet in our life, and she'll get 10 bites to my one. So they just are really attracted to her. I like being outdoors all the time. I grew up on an apple farm in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. So life with myself and my 4 other siblings was spent outdoors. When I was in the Navy, I was a deep sea diving officer, as you mentioned. So as you can guess, a lot of time outdoors, and it's where I like to be. But poor Pam at home, she just gets ravaged by these mosquitoes because they love her so much, and she's not super motivated to go out. And I was always thinking about different products I could develop or businesses I could develop, and I just kept filing ideas away, one idea after another over the years. And I finally thought, well, maybe this is the one I actually do. And I started doing, first looking for products on the market that Pam could use that were chemical free and not DEET based. And I found that we really couldn't find much. And certainly the ones we found weren't very effective. The deep base products, Pam didn't like using them, nor did I, even though they're effective and we grew up with them, but they don't feel good on your skin. People don't like to use chemicals. Pam certainly didn't. And it will degrade your gear too. It'll degrade your gear like plastics and tints and so forth, and even your watch crystal. So not something we wanted to put on our skin, but I could not find a natural product that did the job. And so I started doing research, and I worked with the EPA to discover different possibilities, and ultimately came up with a formulation that worked for home. And then I thought, well, goodness gracious, if it works for Pam, then I know there are a lot of other mosquito magnets out there. There has to be a demand for an effective natural repellent. And went forth, what ended up becoming an effective product that we launched in our garage in North Raleigh. And ultimately we named after our boy Murphy, who was our dog and my hiking companion.
That's incredible. I have to say it works for me too. We first invested in Murphy's in the middle of winter, so it was a bit of a leap of faith that the product was actually going to work. But I've now used it through a few seasons. For everyone's context, Murphy's has been producing its own lines of repellent sprays, candles, and balms in its facility in Raleigh since 2015. And I'm sure there's a number of people on here that are either self-manufacturing or working with a co-man. But maybe you could talk about how, first of all, why don't you tell us what Murphy's mission is, just to give everyone context, and then we'll go from there.
No, thanks for that opportunity, because that is important. We always start all our meetings off with speaking to our mission and vision statement. But our mission at Murphy's is to celebrate nature and inspire good through quality natural products. It's a short mission statement. It's very easy to remember, but the words are selected because they're meaningful. And there's multiple meanings to each one of those. We can always dive into those as we go along, because I think it will become subject matter as we go through some of our questions. And the vision of Murphy's is to be the leading natural products company for outdoor living.
So keeping that in mind, how did that mission impact some of your early decisions as you were building out your supply chain and developing products?
Early on, we established a mission statement very early on, and we knew the type of company that we wanted to be. And fortunately, I was the benefactor of good inspiration. And again, that word inspires is in our mission statement. And I was inspired by companies that I worked with during my time with International Paper, specifically a division called Expedex. And I worked to solve packaging problems for manufacturers, also process problems, and also for retailers. And one retail brand that I worked with for almost 2 decades is the UK-based company, The Body Shop. And one thing I loved about them was, first off, their founder, Anita Roddick. She was so passionate about everything she did. She was a leader. She was ahead of her time when it came to natural products, sustainability, community fair trade. And what I loved about it is I loved the way she was so passionate. I read her book, which I recommend to anyone, which is called Body and Soul by Anita Roddick. But her people, her employees embraced her, and they embraced her passion. And you could see it whether you were working with their team in the UK, down in Littlehampton and London, or you were working with their team here in North Carolina, because their US headquarters were in Wake Forest. But everyone was so dedicated no matter where they were. And I loved that inspiration. And I loved how she put purpose alongside profit. And they don't have to be exclusive of one another. And I just received so much inspiration from how they did business. And I knew when I started a company, that had to be part of it.
You know, the landscapers always tend to show up at the worst time, no matter what time of day. So for anyone who can hear that in the background, I apologize.
Grass grows.
So you're on the other side now. You were partnering with and supplying to the body shop, and now you're going the other direction, so to speak. So what specifically is important to establish with the vendors that you work with, as you keep your mission kind of first and foremost front of mind?
Selecting our vendors is incredibly important. We don't want them to just supply us a good. We want them to be a part of solutions and a part of change, and a part of our mission and responsibility. So we won't choose just any vendor. But one thing I did get inspiration from the body shop again is how they evaluated their supply chain. And they had an ethical audit that they would put their suppliers through. And that would be conducted by a third party like Smeta, for instance. And they would go and they would conduct this audit. And if you did not reach a certain score level with this audit, then you couldn't be approved as a vendor. So they didn't care where you were in the world. You had to go through this process. And certainly certain parts of the world don't care as much about people. They don't care as much about safety and health and environment. And what I really liked about the body shop is when they would go and do that, if they saw egregious things, obviously that's important and you may report that, but they weren't looking for the perfect supplier. They were looking for a supplier who met the majority of these requirements, but they would identify in the process these opportunities for improvement, and they would help them become better companies. And I love that about them. So they didn't just throw them away because the supplier couldn't meet all the criteria. They would work with them because they knew if they improved them and they had a higher score, then ultimately that meant it was better for their people. They were a better company, and they would have a solid supply chain that they could count on from an ethical and environmental perspective.
It's just amazing to me, like very early on, how you're obviously focused on building Murphy's, but also using it as a force for change in the world. And I just have all the respect in the world for you and other founders who are building businesses. And my goodness, to also spend time thinking about how the people you partner with, how that partnership can have a ripple effect in our communities and in the planet is just incredible. Still thinking about external partnerships, I imagine something that I know from speaking to founders, kind of a critical decision point is outsourcing something to a vendor, whether it's a manufacturer or a supplier, versus bringing that in-house. And you've certainly made those decisions a number of times. So how do you evaluate when it's time to bring a capability or capacity in-house at Murphy's?
There are a few things that we look at. So when we first started, we had other people making our products primarily. And because I was fortunate enough to work with so many manufacturers and helping them out with their process and with productivity gains, and also worked in an area of with packaging equipment and systems and manufacturing systems, I had that insight to efficiencies and how you can remove bottlenecks and how you can run operations. And so when I was originally working with people on the outside, critical mass mattered. You don't want to invest into a bunch of equipment that may only be good for you for a little while to get you to the next level. So you have manufacturers that have those competencies built in. And so basically what I did is I would evaluate the volumes as we would increase. I would evaluate their capabilities. I would look at the capital investment we would have to make into purchasing equipment where we could manufacture in-house, really weighing all of those things and looking to see, quite frankly, can we have a much better cost point and margin by making those investments and bringing it in-house. And we do manufacture 80% of our products in-house, but those 20% that we don't make in-house, it doesn't really make any sense for us to do it. We don't want to invest in that type of equipment for this product because the scale doesn't make sense. But when you look at our lemon eucalyptus oil, which is one of our spray products, a pump spray, filling equipment makes a lot of sense. Our candle machines, our balm machines, all of those are pretty straightforward and they're higher volume products for us. So looking at that, looking at how much we could save, looking at the payoff for that equipment, that CapEx expenditure, is it a 1 year or 2 year payback? And then knowing all that does is add margin and help us on the bottom line. That's really how we look at it. And then once we do that, we look at how can we improve that equipment even further? Where we find bottlenecks, we find a solution for that bottleneck, which then causes another bottleneck because you're going faster and downline and you solve for that one. But that's kind of been the process of it, and it's been very effective for us.
I have to ask, are you still spending time tinkering on the lines to find improvements, or have you moved on from that?
Oh no, we'll never be done. We'll always be looking for opportunities. For instance, the filling line where we do our lemon eucalyptus oil, that line can actually run almost 4 times as fast, fill 4 times as fast as we run it right now. And we're starting to get more and more demand, quite frankly. So with that additional demand, we need to run our equipment faster. But we have people down the line who are manually putting caps on these bottles. Quite frankly, I don't want to have 8 people doing that all day. It's not good for them. It's not efficient, and we just can't run as fast as we need to. So we've invested into an automatic capper that will put that cap on the bottle for us, and that equipment's coming in Q4 of this year, and it'll allow us to speed up dramatically. And because we're growing so much, those 8 people that would be required, it's not like we're saying goodbye to 8 people. What we're doing is we're, having them go work in other areas of our company, and we're very flexible. So we have people moving from equipment to equipment and different parts, fulfillment, manufacturing. We need all of them, but if we can make their work life a little better by not having them do that same thing all day long, and we can run and increase our margins, it's a positive.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because I've heard from a number of people that employee turnover, particularly when it comes to hourly employees, has been an issue over the last few years. But something that I've always been impressed with is you have quite low employee turnover on your production team. And like you said, retraining people on different parts of the equipment and the plant is a priority. You don't have seasonal workers. The production team is really part of the team and part of the family. So I think that's rare. And I know keeping that team engaged has been a priority through the pandemic and today. So what are the different ways that you keep the production team engaged?
Culture's incredibly important. And we don't have different sections of the company. Obviously, we have different functionality. People in marketing, you have people in sales, you have people in innovation and purchasing and finance and production, all of these different areas that may operate somewhat independently, but we are a team, and we have an incredible culture, which I think is important for any company, is to make sure that they are focused on the culture of their organization. And everything that we do in our company is based on appreciation and respect for one another. And that goes from the top all the way down. And it doesn't matter where you are in the company, that appreciation and respect is incredibly important. And from that, you build trust. And when you have trust, you're pretty unstoppable as a brand and a company. But that culture that we develop of working together and caring about each other makes all the difference in the world. It's not just a place to work. It's a place that you actually care about, where you understand the mission, you understand the vision of the company, and you're bought in. So, they get it and they want it. And that's incredibly important. And we do things like quarterly volunteerism as a team. So we go out and we dedicate at least 4 hours every quarter where we go out as a team. And it's actually part of our bonus structure and goal. We all have to complete that. But it's a great time to get together, to go out and serve the community as a team. And it's always so much fun. So, we're doing good and we're having fun at the same time. But we do a lot of things together. There's great communication throughout the company. And all of that, and having people that are exceptional, who really lean in and work so hard, you just attract more people like that. And because of our mission and vision, people are attracted to our company. And we have so many referrals through our members that we just keep adding on incredible people. And, I describe myself as a fortunate founder. I'm the visionary. I'm the one who has the ideas, many of the ideas, other team members do too, but the real vision of the company. But I have all these people that really make it happen. So it's great to be someone who can have ideas, but you have to have an incredible team to make it function and make it all come to life. And we have that here.
Yeah, it's certainly infectious. I know, we have multiple team members, including myself, who, whenever they're in North Carolina, make an excuse to come work from your offices. And it's just a delight to be there. And yeah, it's certainly felt, even as someone who's not an employee of the company. Maybe we could give people a few quite tactical suggestions or ideas for how to engage hourly employees. As an example, I remember you all implemented a quarterly bonus for production employees. So maybe if you could touch on that.
Yeah, that's an important thing too. We have annual goals, of course. We also have quarterly goals, but in our annual goals, we realize for our operators that goal is so far off. When it's at the end of the year and we achieve certain goals, it's really hard to keep your eye on the target. And we thought, especially for our operations crew, because all that they're doing every day, it's doing things right every day and doing things with high quality that make all the difference. And so we implemented quarterly goals, plus we have an annual goal, so that we can work on a 90-day period of time where we're really focused on achieving those goals, and those goals support our annual. But having that shorter term target for our team members means a ton. So you think about it, if we have an annual goal and say we don't reach that annual goal and there's no bonus that's paid for that, gosh, that was a lot of work put in all year round. So if we give these quarterly goals, achieving those, they have the opportunity to achieve a quarterly goal. It's 4 times plus the annual 5 times throughout the year. They have bonus opportunity. So shortening that goal time period makes a big difference, and everybody rallies around it. Makes all the difference in the world, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think that's great. Just thinking about really the individual needs for kind of recognition and acknowledgement of milestones on a more regular basis. I think being seen by the company and by your leader is so important. Anything we didn't touch on in terms of, we talked a lot about the production team, but just thinking about all of Murphy's employees, anything we didn't touch on in terms of encouraging buy-in to the mission? There
are probably a bunch of little items here and there that may come to mind as we go along, but I really do think it's important for our team members that they understand the culture and they're a part of that culture. And we have a dog mentality, as we call it, and DOG, doing others good, is what we're about fundamentally. So while we're a for-profit company, we know that we have the opportunity, and we feel the responsibility to do other good in the process. And that dog mentality that our team has, and the desire and want to do good, is important for our culture. So, if a founder and leadership and others can really make sure that the organization is based on that and always instill that, then it gets a life of its own. And everyone is encouraging that and building upon it. Dog mentality, obviously, it's not lost that Murphy was a dog. So DOG makes a lot of sense for us, but doing others good, really helps everyone do well.
I don't want to, I actually want to spend just a second on that, which is even I know your mission. And that's saying something because every company has a mission, and usually the statements are hard to memorize. But there's really something to be said for a pithy phrase or acronym that has multiple meanings or whatever it is, giving employees that short, memorable statement that infuses everything you do. Like, I really don't want to undervalue that, whether it's a mission or a marketing strategy, giving something for people to grab onto and rally behind. This is what we're doing. We're doing others good. We have a dog mentality. It's just repeatable and it's catching. On that positive note, we're going to pivot to challenges. And I think, as Adrian mentioned in the chat, and I imagine a number of people will have something to say here. We're going to talk about the last 4 years and #supply chain. I think every company and every person has dealt with so many challenges, especially for anyone who makes a product like Murphy's. And I think we felt this dramatically at the early stage. So maybe you could give people some comfort and camaraderie and talk about some of the supply chain challenges that Murphy's has faced over the last few years and how you overcame those.
Sure. And we're just like everyone else. We weren't immune to the supply chain challenges, and there are just so many things you couldn't do anything about. There were just challenges upon challenges, and the layers were there. We're a pretty creative team, and we found lots of different ways to pivot. But one thing, and this goes back to that whole culture of appreciation and respect, which brings trust. It's not just within the organization. We share that with customers. We share that with our supply chain. And when you treat your suppliers as a really big part of your company, and you treat them with the appreciation for bringing you and supplying you those products and being creative, and you respect everything that goes into it, something that happens, it's kind of a beautiful thing, is, man, oh man, are they bought into you and what you do as a company, and they will go that extra mile to help you and do everything they can do to make sure you have a supply of product. And we're by no means a large company. There's so many giant companies that some of our suppliers service that mean way more to them in terms of revenues. But some of these partners have just been golden and essential to us because of how we work, and that appreciation and respect for them. They really leaned in and helped us out when we needed to. They helped us from a cash flow perspective, giving us extended terms, which was incredibly important. They would find ways to get us product, even when their manufacturing didn't support it and we were going to be way out in terms of lead times. They cared about us too, and they found a way to lean in. And I think we were fortunate that we didn't have nearly as many supply chain challenges as others did. And our willingness to be flexible helped, our willingness to adapt, and theirs as well. But that relationship meant a ton for our organization. So we had a record year in 2020 during the pandemic when it was so tough. Could we get everything we wanted and needed? No, we couldn't. But boy, we did a lot better than most and grew significantly, through the pandemic, which was rewarding, and we couldn't have done it without our supply chain.
Yeah, thinking back to our conversation on bringing capabilities in-house, you might be making more of a case for people on bringing some of those processes in-house sooner.
That's a good point though, Melissa, because it's one thing to get the componentry and bring those in, but if we were looking at the finished product where someone was having to bring in all that componentry and deal with that, then manufacture the product, that really limits us in terms of our flexibility. But because we make the majority of our products, we're working with all those suppliers. And so we have the ability to pivot and change this cap or work on this bottle or work with this label in a different configuration so that we can get supply in to service our customers. So being a manufacturer of our product, for me, made all the sense in the world, but it doesn't make all the sense in the world for every product and every company.
Yeah, I mean, even at Murphy's, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you still have some co-manufacturing relationships. So,
Mhm.
so how did you manage those throughout all of the supply chain challenges over the past few years?
Yeah, there were times where it was challenging, for sure, and there may have been times where we would even have outages of some of our finished products, because those products were made by a manufacturer who was providing that turnkey, and they had their own supply chain challenges. But we did really well with forecasting, or as best as we could. When you have significant growth and you're picking up new business, you don't know that going into the year, because some of it comes during the year, and you have to adapt and adjust the best you can. The communications, good partnerships, that made a big difference for us. And we had some delays, but not nearly as much as others did. So good partnerships matter.
So thinking about a piece of your supply chain, you produce products, some of which are sold in plastic bottles. So I'll get a bit controversial here. Those
Mm-hmm.
plastic bottles are then shipped all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some ways that you reduce your environmental impact, given processes and materials like that?
Well, we do use plastics with some of our packaging, and our objective and our goal is to move away from that, in a way that's responsible, manageable. So there's quite a bit involved with that. But the simple side to all of that is that we're not perfect, and we know we're not perfect, but we're always trying to improve and get better. So one thing we did is we went from virgin plastic, and we went to 25% PCR. So that means 25% post-consumer, and then we've gone to 50%. So this year we'll have 50% post-consumer recycled content in our bottle. So those are step changes, those are improvements, but it's still a plastic bottle, and we get that. So if we're using plastic, it's like, okay, what can we do as an offset? And an organization that we work with is Repurpose Global. And so for every ounce, every pound of plastic that we utilize, we are removing from the supply chain. We're removing it from the waste stream. And the way we do that is we support Repurpose Global. They go out and they have people who work for them, especially underserved populations, where they pay them. They don't just have them work for them on a project, but they actually employ them and give them safe working environments. And they are taking plastics out of the waste stream, especially those that are ocean bound. So it's going to rivers and so forth that feed the ocean, and they pull that. And that's meaningful. So it's keeping all of those plastics out of the ocean, pulling it from the waterways. So we do that, and we support that in a big way. And that offsets all of the plastic that we do use. And we have started using aluminum for our lemon eucalyptus oil, our 6 ounce.
Continuous spray, Philip. It's so great.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's a real improvement. So our pump sprays, we have plastic bottles right now, but for our continuous spray, which is a bag on valve technology, that's an aluminum can. Now you can have challenges with aluminum as well. I mean, obviously it takes energy to produce, but it's infinitely recyclable. So our objective is to go to more and more recyclable materials like aluminum. And that's our goal and that's objective. And we're going to work towards that. But are we perfect? No. Are we always trying to get better? Absolutely.
A couple things there. One thing I want to emphasize is that material innovation is innovation. It doesn't always have to be a brand new product line. I think what we've seen in partnering with Murphy's is something like the move to an aluminum can opens up and unlocks additional sales. So I think that's a really important point for maybe a number of people in the audience, which is your innovation pipeline can include packaging innovation, and that can be a huge unlock. I know that continuous spray, which I don't have one here, but for everyone's reference, it's like the sunscreen continuous spray in the can. I know I go through that pretty fast. I hope you're not going to tell me that with this move to PCR, we're going to start running into the plastic water bottle issue where it falls apart and gushes all over me when I open it. But maybe you could, as you go through that iterative process of 25% PCR, 50% PCR, what all does that involve in making sure that you can make those moves? How do you evaluate that decision?
Well, we do have to have the right partners in that. And so we evaluated several different ones. And, we want certification of that PCR content. So we put a lot on our suppliers to make sure that they're delivering on what they're saying. So if it's 25% PCR, we want verification. If it's 50% PCR, we want verification. And we have set up special programs with our suppliers where they are doing much longer runs, and they will do these extensive runs. So we're doing a whole bunch of product at one time. Now, being a small company, we don't want to buy all of that inventory and apply cash and having that sitting on our floor. So we've created partnerships with our suppliers where they are doing these long production runs, which give you better economies. You have verification of the content, like the PCR content from that run versus a whole bunch of smaller ones. And they actually warehouse the product for us at their facility, and then they provide it to us more as we need it, rather than supplying truckloads and truckloads of product. And what that does is they bill us on terms at the time they ship it to us, rather than when they make it. So it really helps us from a cash flow perspective as well, but it also helps us maximize those production runs. So we're able to reduce costs. And when you have fewer production runs, it's a lot easier to verify that PCR content and so forth. So we try to do things in as smart a way as possible. And sometimes it's our supplier that brings us those solutions, or sometimes we take the solution to them and ask them if they're on board and willing to do it.
I think one of the things I've heard throughout our entire conversation is this resounding theme of measurement. And I've heard a number of people, including yourself, talk about how sustainability and a strategy around sustainability really starts with measurement. So what are some of the things that you're measuring, and how do you even manage that as a small company? What are those metrics that you're looking at?
Well, we pretty much measure everything. And that's important. And does it require a lot of work? Absolutely, it does. It requires discipline, tenacity, but we do that. And when you think about manufacturing and manufacturing KPIs, it's not just about the throughput and the number of products or units that you make, per minute, per hour, per day. It's also about how efficiently did you do that? How much waste was there in the process? How much of it needed to be reworked? And then we take those and we say, okay, this is what we're doing right now from a waste perspective. Well, we have goals that we want to get to. So are we reaching those goals? And then if we're achieving them consistently, how do we get it even better so that we have even less waste? Obviously, less waste is good for us from a bottom line perspective, but it's also good environmentally as well. So tracking KPIs like that are important. And then you'll always have products that maybe are seconds or not perfect. So we have a process for reworking some of our products. If it's out of the question and too difficult to do so, then we might donate those products because there are plenty of people and organizations who can use it. But if we can recondition the product, we do. We don't want to throw it away because we avoid throwing anything away if at all possible. So if we can get a practical use out of that, and we have KPIs measuring that and keeping track of it, then we have something to benchmark off of and constantly improve from.
On this topic, I want to take a question from the audience, which is, can you provide some specific examples of quarterly goals that you're measuring for your hourly line employees? So circling back to those production employees, of all the KPIs we just talked about, and I know there's many more because I've seen the reporting, which are the ones that you kind of bring to measure your hourly line employees against? I think some people here could use some suggestion and guidance on what to measure those employees against.
Yeah, well, we have certain things in place that go across all of the employees. So we think about production. Let's just say you're in a production line, okay? Something that's really important every day is that you're on time. You have to be present, you have to be there, and you have to be on time, because you wouldn't want a line to be held up from starting production because a person isn't late, a key person or any person isn't there on time to allow us to start. So, having that responsibility, being present and being there on time is incredibly important. Another thing that's important to us is safety. We always want people to be super vigilant from a safety perspective. And one of the ways we do that is we have safety training. And so there's a requirement from our employees that they complete safety training, and we give them different modules so that they can complete that. And it's a requirement for their bonus. They have to complete a certain number of safety modules in order to be eligible for their quarterly bonus. So we make that a part of it, just like we make volunteerism a part of it. So if they're going through that process, they're doing the training modules, they're learning more, they're more aware. And then again, this goes back to what I've repeated a few times, and hopefully people aren't getting too tired of hearing it, but that culture of appreciation and respect. Part of that is looking after one another, appreciating each person, whether there's a limitation or not, but really appreciating them and respecting their work and those people as individuals. And having that creates a brotherhood of sorts where, all of our employees are watching after each other and taking care of each other. And when you're doing that, it also helps prevent injury. It also helps allow people to work cooperatively and find solutions together, because the people who can find the best solutions aren't the people like me who aren't running the lines. The best solutions come from the people who are doing it every day and see an opportunity for improvement. And you have to give them that voice to be able to share that and work cooperatively with one another as well.
I'm definitely taking notes here, because through the past few years, especially from our companies that have production facilities, we've had all sorts of questions on how to reduce churn, how to engage employees, how to motivate them, how to reward them. So I just want to double click on this before we move on from those kind of key points that you're measuring on. Are there any volume or revenue or obsolescence KPIs that the production team is measured on?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. So in our company's annual goals, part of our goals, we'll have revenue numbers, we'll have margin goals, so profitability goals that we have set for the entire company, and we know we can all influence that, and that goes throughout the entire organization. So our company bonuses, our annual bonuses, those are parts of it. Revenues, margin, profitability, all of that's part of it, as well as volunteerism and other things. Those are important. They're easy measurables, but it's all the measurables that fall under it, that may be different from that, but they help support that. And that's a key thing, is that those company goals are supported by all the sub goals that go on throughout the organization, whether it's for a department or whether it's for the leadership or whether it's for the individual within the company. As long as all of those support the company's goals, then everyone's rowing in the same direction, which is a term we hear a lot, a phrase, rowing in the same direction, but it makes sense, right? I mean, if people are rowing in different directions, your canoe's going to be going in circles rather than heading somewhere.
I want to double click on one thing here, which is you mentioned volunteerism, and I just want to make it super clear for the audience that Murphy's is paying hourly employees to fulfill their volunteerism commitment. That is on company time. And I think as we're talking about how to engage employees and how to infuse a mission in an organization, I just think that's really remarkable, that you protect that time and in fact require it and measure people on it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a burden. It can be fun, and we make it fun because we do it as a team, and we incorporate lunch with it or cookouts and that sort of thing in the process. So it shouldn't feel like a burden to volunteer. There should be joy in doing it, and it always is. They're my favorite days of the year when we get together as a team and we volunteer. And there's just so many smiles on our team members' faces. We all get to work together. We have our different departments. So oftentimes during the normal day, someone in, let's say, finance may not be working with someone in production that much, but these are opportunities where we're all working together on something that has meaning. So I appreciate that. And I think celebrating the victories you mentioned before about achieving certain goals in manufacturing. And we had some goals that we set that it was like, there's no way we can achieve those production throughput goals. And we kept working the problem, right? We kept working for solutions and solving it. Much of this done by our team on the floor. And they achieved the numbers that we weren't supposed to be able to achieve. And then they went and achieved another level. And so we break out the Blackstone grill and we grill up some burgers and hot dogs and chicken and have a cookout for our whole team. And it's fun to celebrate those occasions.
I'll have to come down for one of those volunteer days. I know I could use some of that beer you're brewing on the side.
That was a good project.
There's a lot of questions from the audience, as we're talking about your supply chain and production team. When you're hiring people for that team, what are the key attributes that you look for in those employees?
Well, one thing that we always want to make sure of is we're putting the right people in the right seats. So that's incredibly important. And I've been guilty of that in the past. Where I've hired someone or we've hired someone that we really liked, seemed like a really good person, but the fact of the matter, they really weren't the best fit for the role. And ultimately that creates stress for them. It creates stress for the organization. So it's really important that we vet people out based off of their strengths. And we use different methods to determine, we use Culture Index, for example. We also use Working Genius, and it allows us to understand the person a little bit better and their personas. But beyond that, we we're fortunate. A lot of the people that come to us want to be a part of us because they've learned about us. They learn we're a certified B Corporation. They learn about the good that we do. They've heard about us through some of our other team members. And is everybody happy all the time? No, of course not. We're human, but we are most of the time. But it's, not just about being happy. It's also about satisfaction in the work you do, and pride in the work you do. And we have people who work hard, but they're also happy. So, we're fortunate in that respect, and people want to be a part of that. So we attract a lot of good people who are already coming in with that mindset. But if they don't know us, we want to make sure they know what we're about, so that they're on board with us before they join. We love diversity of thought. We love all types of people. But when it comes to the fundamentals of our business, good is good. And we want people to realize that and be inspired by that and want it.
Can you just touch, we've talked about this, but just circling back to culture index and working genius, can you just tell people quickly what that is? And I know I've had my work style, leadership style, personality measured up and down a million different ways in the organizations I've been a part of. But yeah, just quickly for everyone's reference, what are those?
So Culture Index is one that we use and we subscribe to, and it's an organization. You can look it up. I'm sure just Google Culture Index, and they help you understand the personas of yourself, of individuals, and it kind of shares, where your strengths are. It also may share with you, what might be opportunities for improvement, but it tells you the type of person. Are you an innovative person? Are you a tactician? Somebody who's really good about getting things done in detail. It can give you different pieces of information about you, which helps you understand yourself better, but also to make sure that we're aligning people so that they are aligned with the job. Because the worst thing you can do is put someone who isn't well equipped for a job, because again, it'll frustrate everyone. And then the other one, which is Working Genius, it's a real simple way of evaluating things. And it just breaks down, there's 6 geniuses, and those 6 geniuses, 2 of them are your genius, your working genius, 2 of them are your competency, and 2 are your frustration. So for myself, my 2 geniuses are invention and discernment. Okay. My frustrations are galvanization and tenacity. So I'm the guy with the vision, but I need an integrator to make sure all the stuff happens, because I'll get something 80% done and I'll lose interest and I'm off to the next thing. So you need somebody who can get it across the finish line, make sure everything's done properly. Can I work in that space? Absolutely, I can. I can be tenacious, but it's a frustration. It's doesn't bring me joy to do it, but sure I can. Where I'm happiest is in the other side, and everybody's different. We have lots of people with tenacity. We have lots of people, as their geniuses, and it's just a real simple way to evaluate who you are, what you are, and make sure you're working in the right job.
What I also love about that is it just gives you a common language to relate to people. And I think sometimes we can all be guilty of dismissing that type of conversation as less important than delivering on the financial bottom line, or even getting out there and volunteering. But I think it's so important to have that common language in order to work together as a full team. Mm-hmm. I would encourage everyone to place any other questions in the chat. We do have a few more, but I want to touch on kind of 2 questions as we near the end here, and then I'll circle back to audience questions if we have time. So I mentioned financial returns, and as your investor, one of your investors, I have to ask, we've been talking a lot about Murphy's mission, but how do you balance that mission and generating financial returns for your stakeholders?
Yeah, and that's an important thing. And one thing for anybody who's coming on board our team, investing into our company, like Emil, it's important that you understand who we are. Like you knew up front, we're a certified B Corporation. You understood our mission. You understood our vision. You also understood that since day one, we've given 2% of our revenues towards doing others good. It's not profits, it's revenues. And, for years and years, we haven't been profitable, yet we're still taking 2% of our revenues every year, and we've never missed a beat. And that's through volunteerism, that's through product donation, that's through providing money to different organizations. And one of those is 1% for the planet, where we commit 1% of our revenues every year to organizations under their umbrella. And that's part of our 2% by providing at least 1% to them. And that's incredibly important to us. So when you have a stakeholder that's investing into our company, they need to understand how important that is going in. So beyond that, what we find and what we're doing as a company, because of the type of company we are, we're bringing in exceptional employees. And you think about like a regular employee, a good, solid working employee, I think of them as like a 1, okay? And you think of someone, you have those employees that just work a little bit harder, think a little bit smarter, more lateral in their thinking, creative. I think of them as being a 1.5, where they can do 1.5 the work of this 1, and there's something about that when you start having a culture where you're filling your company up with these 1.5s, because 1.5s want the ones to come up to them. They want them to be better, and they're really driven. So filling our company with those people, which is what we're doing, it's incredible the productivity that you get, and it enables you to be able to pay them at a higher rate because they're not a 1, they're a 1.5. So you can give them a higher amount of pay, and that's great for retention because you want more people like that. And, then you have more happiness, you have joy, people are productive and they feel good about it. All that matters because that goes down to the bottom line. If you're that much more efficient and you have people that are that much more engaged, then you're going to run things more efficiently. It's going to allow you to be more profitable. So you don't have to have an exclusivity between good and doing good and the bottom line of profitability. And certified B Corps work on a triple bottom line. It's not just the P, the profit. It's people, it's planet, and it's profit. So it's absolutely important that you have that profit. That makes you sustainable. But those other things make you really special. They make you a unique organization. And it's not easy to qualify as a B Corporation. It's incredibly difficult. And we've recertified 3 times already, and it just gets harder each time. But it's a pretty cool thing to accomplish it. All those things matter, but the bottom line is incredibly important, and making sure that you're driving that profitability so that you can grow, so that you can innovate, so that you can have a wonderful place for your employees and give a return on that investment from our investors.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I've certainly observed in being part of your journey that financial returns and doing others good are not mutually exclusive. And I happen to believe that venture capital and impact investing are one and of the same. If you are laser focused on your mission, well, growing a business and delivering that ROI lets you spread that mission to even more stakeholders across the globe. So I think we'll end there. Philip, I want to thank you for your time and your comments and your thoughtful responses here. Hopefully, I know I took notes and will certainly use some of the points you've made in advising our companies and other founders in the space. So thank you so much for the time today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Melissa. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about Murphy's Naturals and our teams. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Thank you both for joining us today, and for everyone on the call. Have a wonderful week. We will be routing the panelist information and then also the recording in case you'd like to listen to it again, probably by end of week. So have a wonderful day.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.